at its best. Made from the purest ingredients to nourish your heart, mind, and body for lifelong wellness. Nordic Naturals. Take your health to the power of omega-3.
At CarShield, we want our employees to be themselves.
Woo! Where's my yogurt? Woo! How'd that taste?
But at the end of the day, it's all about the customer.
CarShield's doing it better than anybody else alive. They're the money-saving, roadside assistant, son of a guns protecting you from expensive car breakdowns. CarShield cars go farther. Woo!
Watch The Lead, weekdays at 5 on CNN and watch on the CNN app.
I wonder why they call it a support beam.
I don't know, but it tastes load-bearing.
Ugh, an organ pro? That's it. I'll never eat here again.
Nope. 1 star. Orkin, the best in pests.
Thousands of products claim to be innovative. Most aren't.
They're either gimmicky, overpriced, or lacking in true innovation.
We searched for products that actually make a difference,
Improving how you live,
Work,
eat, or sleep.
in ways existing products haven't solved.
Here are 3 that earned one of CNN_'s Innovation Awards.
For the awards, our editors tested products across home, tech, beauty, travel, outdoors, and wellness, all looking for one thing.
Does this solve a real problem better than what came before?
No hype, no buzzwords.
Just real-world testing that makes everyday life better, easier, and more convenient.
The Cumulus machine is the first machine exclusively made to brew cold brew, nitro cold brew, and cold espresso with the touch of a button in under 60 seconds. So we've tried a lot of coffee machines. This is unlike any other that we've seen, which is why we chose it as our kitchen innovation of the year. If you exclusively drink...
Do you want to live forever? The Longevity Industrial Complex wants you to believe you can. Is it science or snake oil? That's what I'm going to find out.
Kara Swisher Wants to Live Forever, April 11th on CNN.
Grief isn't talked about much, but that's what my podcast is all about. Join me and my guests for a new season with new conversations about loss, life, and love.
All There Is with Anderson Cooper. Listen at cnn.com/allthereis.
You introduce your buddy to DTF St. Louis. He goes on the site and winds up dead.
I want to know more.
What's going on out here in the suburbs?
The Situation Room, weekday mornings at 10 on CNN and watch on the CNN app.
This is the work of a cold, calculating assassin.
In a competition like this, every chef is swinging for the fences.
This is the best lineup of bakers I have ever seen.
All new, the Ultimate Baking Championship, Monday at 9 on Food Network.
In our Law and Justice lead, a new report is shedding light on an online game that's sweeping through classrooms nationwide and troubling parents and educators alike. It's called Five Nights at Epstein's. Players pretend to be sexual assault victims trapped on the late sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein's private island. It is horrifying on its face. Bloomberg tech reporter Alexandra Levine wrote about this game, which has now gone viral, and joins me now. It's incredible work. The story, but just start by walking us through the origin of this game and how it became so popular.
Well, Phil, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where this originated, but it emerged in the last few months as the Justice Department was releasing more files related to past government Epstein investigations. I think, though, what has really supercharged the spread of this, particularly in schools, is social media, where now you've got videos of boys playing the game, girls playing the game as well, in classrooms, at their desks, sometimes even on school-issued devices. And these videos are sometimes racking up millions of views on platforms like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not like a prude by any means, but this was like a general what the bleep moment. When I read your story, it's remarkable to me. Are there any moves to try and ban the game or try and short circuit the ability to get the game?
You know, I think, to be clear, this game was not intentionally designed for minors. It was designed by a gamer for a much broader audience, and now there's many versions of the game. And yet, kids, like with so much other technology, kids are finding their way to it anyways. And that really led us in our reporting to ask the question, is this just kids being kids and teens being teens, or does this go a step beyond that? And in speaking to parents and educators, the answer was resoundingly, this is different, and it's extremely problematic and dangerous on many levels. But at the end of the day, the platforms do have some rules, some rules related to child exploitation. But at the end of the day, the majority of the videos that we found that are showing this game and students playing it don't actually violate platform rules.
Can I ask you real quick, just to expand a little bit on this is different in terms of your reporting, what you found, why?
I think in the past, it's very easy to dismiss things as kids being kids, teens being teens. There is a game called Five Nights at Freddy's, which is quite popular, that is also sort of like a scary, suspenseful game that is sort of the first iteration of this. Then moving past that, around the time of the Sean Combs trial a couple of years ago, you saw Five Nights at Diddy's emerge. And then now, after all of this, you've seen Five Nights at Epstein's emerge. And I think that, of course, it's easy to dismiss as kids being kids, but it really also seemed like the risk here is that children are becoming desensitized to some really horrible, illegal, violent things, and it's also dehumanizing to the victims.
That's what I mean. I think immediately about the victims. Is there concern that this is this is just a reality for kids these days, given kind of what they're growing up with, the technology, the social media, everything like that? Is that your sense of things when you talk to people?
I think a big piece of this is just the popularity of the social media, internet meme culture, which really is bent on taking current events, taking hot button political, social, cultural issues, things that are controversial, and just making light of them. And I think when the platforms have also loosened some of their content policies to allow even more content to stay online, especially content that is satirical content focused on public figures, I think it makes it even easier for a lot of this stuff to spread.
Yeah. Again, I'll sound like an old person. Like, it's not edgy. It's not. It's not funny or cool. All right, Alexandra Levine, it's a great story. You can read it on Bloomberg. Thanks so much for coming in. Well, breaking news from President Trump on the shutdown impacting TSA agents. We'll go live to the White House next.
Well, here I am. Sitcoms are making a comeback. Knew they would. I'm executive producer now, and we've got work to do. What's fun about this to you?
Don't look at your phone to see what other people think about it.
Okay. I looked. Oh. I know.
Visit bombas.com and get 20% off your first order.
With Kalshi, you can trade on anything, from the weather to news to even pop culture. And unlike other apps, Kalshi lets you trade against other users, not the house. Live trade during the events. Kalshi, trade on anything. New users can get a bonus when they sign up and trade.
I wonder why they call it a support beam.
I don't know, but it tastes load-bearing.
Ugh, an organ prone? That's it. I'll never eat here again.
Nope. 1 star. Orkin, the best in pests.
Well, breaking news in our politics lead, President Trump has just posted that he's ordered the Department of Homeland Security to, quote, immediately pay our TSA agents, although it's not entirely clear how that will work or what authority he's utilizing for that order. I want to get straight to CNN's Kristen Holmes from the North Lawn of the White House. Kristen, I know this is like just happening. We're trying to figure lots of things out here. What do we actually know right now?
Well, we're asking all the same questions that you are. So I do want to get straight to the Truth Social post, because that's where, of course, he put this news, as he is wont to do. This is what he wrote. He said, I am using my authorities under the law to protect our great country, as I always will do. Therefore, I am going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It's not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to do it. Well, I mean, that last line is kind of an understatement here. It's not an easy thing to do. We're not really sure what legal mechanism he has to do this or where this money would come from. Remember, the reason why we're in this situation is because they're fighting over funding for DHS that would then fund these agents who are on the ground. So where is the money going to come from to fund these agents? And if President Trump has this legal authority to kind of just bypass Congress completely on an issue like this, then why have we had these standoffs for the last decade over these various issues when usually there is a president sitting in the White House who is on one side or the other when it comes to these various issues? So it is unclear what legal authority he is using or where that money is going to come from. We have, of course, reached out to the White House to try and figure all of this out and what this plan actually means for those men and women who are currently not being paid.
Well, definitely keep us posted. I'm literally right now thinking like I wasted 15 years of my life covering late night stakeouts over government shutdowns. If we could have just done this the whole time. All right, Kristen Holmes from the North Lawn. Again, we're all trying to figure everything out. Great reporting as always. Well, I want to discuss now with the panel. And again, I think it's important to just be candid with folks. We don't know the emergency authorization that he is alluding to here. There are things the Office of Management and Budget can do on its own to move money around as this administration has done. This does not appear to be that. What's your kind of initial kind of snap response to the president unilaterally able to do this?
Well, one, I'd be curious to know what the legal theory that the president is proposing. I think this is a fascinating territory, just as someone who loves electoral politics, broadly speaking. But two, I also think the president is attempting to shift some of the blame here on Democrats by saying, look, we don't have enough votes on the Republican side to do this. We need a handful of Dems to come over. We only got one, and that's a senator out of Pennsylvania. So I'm going to attempt through executive authority to make sure the hardworking people who Karen mentioned in our previous segment are getting paid on time so that they can put food on their tables, cover their rent and their mortgage. I can imagine if you're Dems right now, this is not a good look to continue to say we're not going to try to compromise with Republicans on this front when the president is trying to find a solution. I think this was kind of strategic and smart in a lot of ways.
I think it's a win for Democrats because it proved that they clearly were standing firm, and I suspect that the president is also hearing, not only seeing the polls we were just talking about, but hearing from his members, particularly frontline members, we can't handle this. We can't take it. They're hearing from their own constituents. People are struggling. It's not just, it's the backlog at the airports. It's the pain. And, another of our Republican colleagues said, well, this is how he deals. He does this move and that move. All right, but you're negotiating with people's very real pain. And Republicans, another quick thing on this, are starting to lose the confidence of the American, lose trust and confidence in the American people that they're the ones who can deliver a prosperous economy. It's another poll that was out recently. That's been an advantage that Republicans have enjoyed for quite some time. If that shifts, that's a huge move for Democrats to make the argument going into the midterms. We're the ones who can get this economy straight. We're the ones who actually care about people and your everyday lives.
And I wish Democrats would do the right thing then and work with Republicans to fund this. And they're literally not doing it because we simply do not mathematically have votes.
To just totally
we just don't have the votes.
Lay bare that I'm a Hill nerd at heart. Like, this is the worst possible thing to happen for any type of outcome in the near term, which apparently was starting to get, according to Lauren Fox, was getting some signs of light. Like, jet fumes. There's a 2-week recess. It's Thursday night. It's always dark before it goes pitch black, according to John McCain. Like, it's that moment right now. And right now, this takes all the steam out of that.
Well, but look, It also, I'm sure they're also nervous that there will be cameras at the airports watching them go to the front of the line while people are, as they leave town.
Delta took that away, by the way. Did you see that?
I saw that.
Which I thought was like probably the best incentive for people to actually reach a deal.
100%. But look, I think the point of this still matters. This was never about money. This is about accountability. This was about Democrats saying, we are not going to allow you to treat people on our American streets like we saw in Minneapolis. And by the way, it's still happening. Those border agents and ICE are still breaking the law in the way they are treating people on American soil. And so that principle of accountability actually matters. And then Trump was trying to throw in the SAVE Act, which isn't just about voter ID. It is also about him trying to control the election.
And I take Karen's point as it pertains to ICE and accountability. And the president clearly recognizes that. He recognized it in Minnesota when he sent in Tom Homan. He recognized it when he replaced Kristi Noem with Wayne Mullen. So clearly the president understands what the American people visually see on their television screens every single night. I think he has a good barometer on where the winds are going one way or the other. And so clearly we are making the necessary changes to, one, handle immigration in a proper way, while making sure that the optics don't look negative for the president and the Republican Party. But again, Phil, you know this, we do not have the votes on my side to single-handedly pass this. If we did, we wouldn't need Democrats. It would have been done 2 weeks ago. So we're simply saying, Democrats, compromise with us on the issue of ICE, and they're refusing to, and it's harming the good people who are protecting us at the airports every single day.
Can I ask you, though, like, Democrats' decision to hold out when Thune came back, even though stripping enforcement funding for this, which again has been explained to me 15 different ways from Democrats, and I have enough knowledge of appropriations. I have a pretty decent idea of what they're going for here.
Yeah.
But the point remains, 2 weeks ago, Democrats probably would have taken that deal. It looked fairly similar to the things that they were on board with, and it allowed for a vehicle to continue what, by my understanding, have been very substantive, not always super fruitful, but they've been substantive negotiations over enforcement restrictions going forward. You got a vehicle that you have to pass, something's going to move. This seems to short circuit all of that. Like, this takes the pressure valve and just releases it.
It may, but it certainly means that Democrats were able to stand firm. I mean, the administration could have done this weeks ago. Let's be honest. I mean, Trump is not someone who's actually followed the law in terms of how money, where the money's going. He could have said, we're going to take care of y'all and don't worry about it. He could have done it weeks ago. So I think for Democrats, particularly at a time when they're hearing from voters, we want you to fight, they held the line, and that's important.
I appreciate you guys both, as always. I'm excited to learn about what this actually is. Justification, again, nerd, total nerd. You guys are too. Karen Shermichael, thanks so much. We'll be right back.
Newsnight with Abby Phillip, weeknights at 10 on CNN and watch on the CNN app.
I'm always shopping The RealReal.
They drop over 10,000 new arrivals every day.
Gucci, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Hermes,
Cartier, all up to 90% off retail.
Millions of people, millions of possibilities. Visit therealreal.com for $25 off your first order. Terms apply.
My typical day is truly nonstop. Shifting from day to night is really its own ritual. I have to be at my best for everyone around me. Rest is crucial for that.
This is the moment your hair stops holding you back. You wear it down. And for the first time in a while, you like the way your part is falling. That shift doesn't happen overnight. It comes from sticking with a hair growth routine that works from the inside out. So when the flash flashes, you don't hesitate. You just enjoy the moment. Because the difference isn't just in your hair. Start growing today at Nutrafol.com.
I want to make the most of every day. I do want to do 8 shows a week on Broadway. I do want to travel. And it gives me such peace of mind to know that I have this really simple and yet trusted way of getting all the nutrition I need. Oh, it's good.
Precise designs, subtle curves.
curated upgrades. Custom configurations create a space that's uniquely timeless, yet distinctly personal. Elevated design for thoughtful living. Thuma.
Nope.
Could you change the air filter?
Oh, just go change the air filter.
My ex would have done it.
Guys, stop. It's easy. You just go to filterby.com, select your air vent size, put in the number of filters, and bang! Do you have powers? No. Filterby just has fast and free shipping. So stoked my wife's going.
Wake up. Breaking overnight. Catch up.
New details and more questions.
Start your mornings here.
This is a pivotal week.
CNN News Central. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on CNN and watch at 8 on the CNN app.
I think you're going to want to see this.
When the news breaks,
Watch out.
this team is here to sweep up the pieces.
He got hit in the face and his toupee went.
That's why you watch this show.
Have I got news for you? Now streaming on the CNN app.
CNN This Morning with Audie Cornish. Weekdays at 6 a.m. on CNN.
In our pop lead, you know Andrew McCarthy as an 80s heartthrob, as part of the so-called Brat Pack, and as the star of iconic films like Pretty in Pink and St. Elmo's Fire. And more recently, he's also famous for directing and writing award-winning travel memoirs. RJ Tapper spoke with Andrew about his latest book, just released this week, Who Needs Friends? An unscientific examination of male friendship across America.
The last time you were here, we discussed the fact that you were not in real life hanging out with your fellow Brat Packers, Rob Lowe and Emilio Estevez and the like, for your documentary about the Brat Pack. You wrote this book after your son, Sam, asked you a question. He said, "You don't really have any friends, do you, Dad?" So tell us about how this road trip started, even though you write in the book that you don't particularly like driving.
No, I hate driving, Jake. It is. My son said, "Dad, you don't really have any friends, do you?" And so I sat with that for a minute, and I thought, I do have friends, Sam. I just don't see them, but I know they're there, and that's enough. And then I sat with that, and I realized it wasn't enough. And so I got in the car, and I drove 10,000 miles across the country to go reunite with some of my oldest, dearest friends I hadn't seen in sometimes 20 years. And along the way, I started talking to men of all walks about the place friendship had in their lives. I would just approach random men on the street. Hey, I'm going to see my old friend across the country here. What about you, friends? And anyway, I started talking to these guys. And so it evolved into this book where I just talked to men across America about the place friendship had in their lives. And it turned into an amazing kind of 10,000-mile journey.
I've been talking a lot about this as well recently with my friends. Women seem to have very different friendships than men do, and by that I mean they seem to have much better friendships than men do. What did you discover while exploring this?
Well, you're absolutely right. Women seem to be much better at it than us men are, and I think men in many ways sort of get involved in careers and business and family and all that stuff, but women do too. So we have no excuse really. I think it's just. There's a certain fear of intimacy that us men naturally have, and this certain the idea of manhood has become this kind of stoic, go it alone, carry your own water, pull your hat down kind of thing, and sort of keep it under wraps. And I think to our detriment, that's become the case. And so in just talking to all these men, and I realized how many have just sort of isolated themselves. I realized I'd isolated myself a great deal. And one of the things I discovered as I kept driving across the country, talking to all these men and seeing my friends again was this sort of feeling of a safety net sort of spread out underneath me as I drove across America. Like there's something I'd really been lacking and doing without, with not having this kind of constant and intimate contact with my friends and letting them know how valuable they were to me, you know?
So have you changed your behavior at all? Now, having had this revelation and gone on this journey, are you now visiting your friends more? Are you checking in with them more? Are you talking on the phone now? I find that texting, while a great tool, has in a lot of ways replaced calling people, and I think that's a bad thing ultimately. And I resolved like about a year ago to call my friends more instead of just text them. What about you? What are you doing to fix it?
Well, I've gone, you know, I think you're right. Consistency and showing up. I think I've learned the older I've gotten, the most important thing in life you can do is just show up. The idea that I sort of drove all this distance and my friends would go, dude, you drove all this? I go, dude, you're meaningful to me and you've been important in my life. So yeah, a number of them I have seen multiple times. I do pick up the phone. I think you're right. Texting is great and fine, but I pick up the phone constantly and go, dude, you won't believe what I just saw, even if it's 2 minutes, you know, so that they're an active part of my life again. And you know, it's just a selfish thing to do, because I find in my own life, it's just, I feel sort of safer out in the world. You know what I mean? We're in a precarious moment in the world, and to have friends who know you without even having to say too much and just sort of checking in and touching base, I feel the sense of safety and expansiveness. And I also think as a parent, it's been really good, because, you know, kids don't listen, right? But they know the behavior we model for them. And for me to start changing my behavior and modeling sort of friendship for my kids, I think has been really a valuable thing.
Yeah, and also your son can see that you realize there's a problem and you fix it. And yeah, it's great. Andrew McCarthy, the book is Who Needs Friends? It's out now. Congratulations. Come next time you're in D.C., give me a ring. We can become friends, Andrew.
Love to. Thanks, Jake.
Okay, talk to you later.
Aren't we already?
Yes, but better, deeper.
All right. It's a date.
You can follow the show on X and Instagram at The Lead CNN. If you ever miss an episode of The Lead, you can watch the show on the CNN app. Aaron Burnett Out Front starts now.
Out front next, breaking news. Iran with a new threat against U.S. troops as Trump reportedly weighs new military options to seize Iranian land. Also breaking, are TSA lines about to finally get shorter? An announcement just in that could make a major difference at airports across the country tonight. And why did President Trump spend 5 minutes talking about Sharpies today? Is this what Americans want? Let's go out front. And good evening, I'm Erin Burnett, and out front tonight, the breaking news. Iran with a strong warning tonight against American troops, threatening to target U.S. service members who are now forced to stay in hotels and office spaces across the Middle East, in large part because Iranian strikes have caused so much damage to U.S. bases. Well, that comes as President Trump is weighing several options that could result in heavy U.S. casualties. It's a heavy sentence to say, but that's the reality. And according to Axios, on top of invading Clark Island, a move that Trump, of course, we've pointed out, has talked about since 1988, the Pentagon is also drawing up scenarios that involve military action on several other Iranian islands. Those islands key to Iran's oil production, as well as control over the Strait of Hormuz itself. And President Trump tonight is still ramping up. That's what the world hears again and again, day after day, from both of them. And that tough talk comes as Fox News asked President Trump something surprising but interesting. They asked whether the new supreme leader of Iran is gay.
Did the CIA tell you that Ayatollah Jr.'s gay?
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that, which puts them off to a bad start in that particular country, you know?
Now, if the CIA really told him that, and if it's true, it would be significant. The fact that he's saying it is significant as the president of the United States, because he is saying this knowing that homosexuality is illegal in Iran. And according to Amnesty International, the punishment for being gay ranges from flogging all the way up to execution. So to say that the supreme leader would possibly be that delegitimized and possibly someone who could be executed is something Trump knew he was saying in that interview. It also comes, though, as he's actually backtracking on another threat to Iran, writing on Truth Social, as per Iranian government request, please let this statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days to Monday, April 6, 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern. Talks are ongoing. Now, this is a remarkable statement because it raises the question of why is he doing this? Why is he delaying this now? No, he's put out a deadline. It was 48 hours, then it was 5 days, and we're used to this, okay? But did he really put this out because talks are ongoing and that's why the delay? Or is it because Trump is trying to buy time before striking Iran? Because thousands of American troops are still on their way to the region, and they're not going to be there in time for his first deadline, which is tomorrow. Actually, it's his second deadline. So by another week. Is that it? Or is Trump just trying to manipulate the markets? Today, the NASDAQ ended down more than 2%, which put it into a formal correction territory because of the war. And Deutsche Bank actually even has a model now that they say helps predict when Trump is going to change his mind, or quote unquote taco, the Trump always chickens out term that's been made popular by Wall Street traders. It's basically a pressure index. The higher it goes, the more pressure on Trump from a variety of things like inflation and markets, the higher the chance Trump will reverse course. They said, it was a record level coming into today. And then, well, guess what? So you saw the tariff delay when he said he wouldn't fire Jerome Powell, not using force in Greenland. You can see the chart call it every single time. Now higher than ever during the war, and somehow suddenly a delay of another 10 days, perhaps. Jim Sciutto is out front live from Tel Aviv to begin our coverage tonight. And Jim, Trump saying he's delaying this comes as attacks themselves are actually ramping up tonight. What are you seeing?
So, Aaron, I'm going to focus on what we can see, right? What we're witnessing. What we witnessed today was the busiest day of Iranian strikes on Israel, just by counting the number of air raid warnings and the number of times we and other residents of Tel Aviv had to go into those shelters. It was a very active day, which shows you that Iran maintains the capability to strike out, and not just in the Gulf, but against Israel. Now, most of those, the vast majority of those missiles, incoming missiles, get taken down, but some of them get through, and they have caused damage and injuries on the ground here. So it maintains that capability. I will say that Israeli officials believe that Iran is weaker than it's letting on, and therefore more open to talking than it might be letting on in some of those more hyperbolic statements and threats it's making. However, on the key issues that currently divide the U.S. and Iran, its nuclear program, support for regional proxies such as Hezbollah, but also Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz, there is no evidence, at least that Israeli officials have seen, and I haven't heard any evidence from U.S. officials, that Iran is willing to deal on those issues at this point. So you're left with a scenario where perhaps the most attainable goal in the near term, if the talks work out, is a ceasefire. But much like we saw in the Gaza war, getting a ceasefire is one thing, and it's significant, but it does not address the longer term issues, because those are the tougher ones to negotiate and compromise on for both sides.
Right. All right, Jim Sciutto, thank you very much. And everyone is back here with me now. Colonel Laitman, let me start with you. We know the U.S. is weighing invading Kharg Island. We've all talked about that. Axios is now reporting specifically on some other possible invasions. And I know Seth had spent time talking about two other islands closer to the Strait of Hormuz, and also seizing the Iranian ships that are carrying Iranian oil, even as they've taken away the sanctions that would allow Iran to sell that oil. But, being contradictory doesn't stop them. Does it sound to you that we're on the verge of a potentially dramatic escalation?
It does, Aaron. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but the likelihood has increased that it will happen. And what we're looking at is the increase in the force posture by the U.S. forces. The fact that not only do we have about 50,000 troops in the region right now, but we are also getting more. We're getting more airplanes, more Air Force squadrons are coming in, fighter squadrons are coming in. We have, of course, the two MEUs that are, one is basically there already and the other one is approaching. And then you also have, of course, the 82nd Airborne. So all of those elements are critical elements for America's firepower in general, and they don't make deployments like this just to have an exercise. This is a demonstration of force that could easily be used for actual combat operations.
And every time so far that Trump has done that in this situation, frankly, even with Venezuela, he's used it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's the trend. Seth, when we talk about Abu Musa and two other smaller islands, you had talked about those. Axios is now reporting that he is indeed looking at those, and you had already said that was possibly a very likely option because they're in the strait as opposed to hundreds of miles north of the strait, which is where Hard Island lies. So if Abu Musa is the target, then what does that look like?
Well, I think, Aaron, we've already seen partially what it looks like because what we've seen is U.S. aircraft striking a range of different targets on Abu Musa and several of those islands there. What that means is they're trying to target any air defense systems on there, stockpiles of weapons, any bunkers, communications centers, where if they do end up landing forces there, they're trying to limit the resistance that is faced. One thing that we have not seen a lot of is the bombing of those of airstrips in case they wanted to land aircraft,
right, you mentioned
like
those runways,
C-130 or
yep.
C-17. So that all suggests the possibility of amphibious landings to seize those islands, which could be used both for defensive purposes if there were incoming strikes to target the any transits of the Strait of Hormuz, and offensive operations into Iran itself for strikes.
And I know that, Colonel Layton, you said that the amount of warning time that troops on those islands would have from a missile from Iran could be as little as 10 seconds.
That's right,
so,
depending on where the missile is and what type of missile.
Which fits with what we're hearing the Pentagon is saying, that the scenarios they're looking at involve a very high level of potential casualties. A sobering moment, especially given some of the childish rhetoric that gets thrown around, right? We're talking about human lives. Yeah, Richard, as all of this is happening, Trump, put this technical delay out. I thought the Deutsche Bank graph was pretty incredible. Every time the pressure on Trump has gone up, however that is measured by markets or, and now the highest it's ever been, he has pulled what markets call a taco, which is what he did tonight with that, oh, guess what, I won't do this for another 10 days. Markets immediately reacted.
Yes, they did. And it's interesting that the NASDAQ, when it closed down tonight, the triple stack, NASDAQ closed down 2% and it took it into correction territory, down 10% from its recent all-time high. What that means, of course, is within minutes of the closing bell, the president, there you see it on the screen, within minutes of that, the president announces this delay until April the 7th, the futures go up, and everything starts to reverse. Now, whether you call it taco or you call it the DB pressure index, whether you call it some form of jaw...
Because I'm sure many people want to call it the DB pressure index.
It's never far from my breakfast reading. But whatever you call it, you cannot ignore this correlation between, and it's happened several times this week, between bad economic news, market pressure, president's statement, market reverses. What's interesting is that those reversals don't last because the underlying fundamentals haven't changed. If you say we're talking and there's no results 2 days later, whoops, off it goes the table. If you say there's progress and there is none visible, the reversal once again. You can only jaw the market for so long.
Right. And that's obviously separate from the incredibly suspicious, to use a generous term, trades that we've seen ahead of when he puts these statements out.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Colonel Layton, a commander of Iran's the IRGC was killed, of the Navy in an Israeli operation. Now, I will just put this in the context of Trump has said, since the second or third day of the war, that the Iranian Navy was obliterated. And then there keeps being more obliteration, There keeps being, so I'm asking you the context of how important this individual is. Because we're talking about island invasions, which means there is still some sort of a Navy pressure that they're looking at. So does this elimination matter?
It does. And the reason it matters is because whenever there's a leadership vacuum, that causes disorganization within the defending forces, especially in a case like this. And that particular leader of the Navy, the ROGC Navy commander, was critically important to their presence in the southern part of Iran and in that area around the Strait of Hormuz. The other thing that they did was they also killed, the Israelis also killed the head of Navy intelligence, IRGC Navy intelligence. So now you have basically what you have is the brain and the eyes and ears have all been eliminated at this point.
So Seth, I mean, how do you see this now? Do you look at it as you can look at a sheet of paper and it's getting really tiny with all the places with X's on them, and say they're finally getting to a low enough level that it's really going to affect the command and control? Or is it literally like a whack-a-mole? Okay, this guy was important, and I know he had a long history and he'd been involved in blocking the strait, but there's going to be another one right there because it's a very deep bench in the IRGC.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of Iran, if people remember the Monty Python skit of the Black Knight, that it's got its several of its limbs chopped off, but it still keeps saying,
"You got no legs."
"'Tis but a scratch." The Iranian military has been severely degraded. It's had a range of its leadership killed, a lot of people in hiding. Missile program is severely degraded. Same thing with the drones. Even the Navy is degraded. I don't like to use the term eliminated or
obliterated.
But I think the reality, though, is if the U.S. does try to open up the straits, it just takes a couple of shots from a anti-ship cruise missile. You need one or a couple of them just to get through, and you have a littoral combat ship. By the way, we still don't have two of those littoral combat ships that are in Singapore for maintenance. It's going to take about 4 to 8 days to get them back. So we're still waiting. Trump still needs those to demine that area.
Which fits with his time. By the way, Monty Python was no arms, not no legs.
No,
I was
okay,
wrong. I was
sorry.
wrong. But Richard, this other point also is that I know ships that are still stuck there, right? What is even opening the strait at this point? The bar for opening it. The people are actually going to feel comfortable going through it.
First of all, there are 20,000 seafarers who are on ships that have been there for a month, and they are running out of fuel, they're running out of food, and the conditions are dreadful. To your point, let's just say you're the CEO of Maersk, Vince Clerk, and you're told it's now open. Hang on, you're going to want more than just the president saying it's open. He said to me, I need to know it's safe. I need to know it's open. On this question, for the US and Israel to continue bombing the bejeebies out of Iran is not. It moves you forward to a certain extent, but it's not a great military success in a sense with the might of the US military. It's vast. All Iran has to do is just to keep threatening the shipping to the point where Clerk and others say we're not going through.
Which is where they obviously are now.
Exactly.
They're not.
Would you?
No.
No.
Who would? No.
None of us would.
All right. Thank you all very much. And next, our breaking news continues. We just talked about Larak Island, and how it's a place that Trump is considering sending American troops. We're going to break down the island's terrain and why putting troops there would be so incredibly risky. Why this casualty warning coming from the Pentagon. And breaking news, Trump now directing TSA agents be paid immediately, which could mean travelers who have been spending hours in line could get relief soon. And Savannah Guthrie tonight revealing new details tonight about the night her mother vanished.
All right, let's head for the B block. Gets are clear. Let's move the Colonel and Aaron to the magic wall. Breaks 1 and 4. Stand by your brake master in 3, 2, effect. Roll your brake, please.
When my hair started to thin, I thought, am I going to have any hair left?
After I gave birth, my hair wasn't even thinning, it was gone.
When I spoke to my dermatologist, he immediately pointed me in the direction of Nutrafol.
It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
Within 3 months, my hair was fuller.
It's longer, it's so much thicker.
I had more scalp coverage.
It was so nice to be noticed for my hair after hiding it for so many years.
Start your hair growth journey at Nutrafol.com.
Hi, I'm Kai Burkhardt, editor at CNN Underscored, and today I'm in Eldora Mountain Resort to show you how I found the best ski goggles. After testing goggles from all sorts of brands like Smith, Zeal, Shady Rays, Head, and more, I found two that are the absolute best. After wearing all those goggles on dozens of runs, my favorites are these, the Zeal Optics Beacon goggles. The Zeal beacons come in at $119, which in my opinion is a great value for the comfort and vision clarity you get. I wore each pair of goggles while snowboarding here at Eldora Mountain Resort as well as around my neighborhood to judge for vision clarity. In both of those tests, the Zeal Optics Beacon had some of the best clarity and sharpness out of any pair I tested. The clarity and general vision is great, and I didn't experience any issues while on the slopes. The beacons also have a great field of vision utilizing the brand's observation deck technology, so you can
Breaking news, Trump reportedly considering an invasion of Larak Island, which lies in the narrowest part of the Strait of Hormuz and is key to Iran's control of the strait, part of the area that's now called Tehran's toll booth. The island is 49 square miles, very small, but it does host bunkers, attack craft that can blow up cargo ships, and radar technology that tracks activity in the strait. All of this Iranian military. Colonel Cedric Leighton is back with us at the Magic Wall. So, Colonel Leighton, we've talked a lot about Karg. I know Seth's talked about Abu Musa, but Larak is also important. We've got it highlighted here. What would an invasion of Larak look like, especially in the context of what is already in the region and what Trump has coming in?
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. So just to orient people right here, this is where Larak is, right here at the mouth, basically, of the Strait of Hormuz if you're coming out this way. Abu Musa is here, and Karg Island is right up here in the northern part of the Gulf. So when you look at Larak specifically, it is right in this area right here where they have the area right here where you could really cut off anything that's going through the strait. So this is a critical military target, or at least potentially a critical military target. And one of the key things is, how would you actually go about doing this? Well, you would bring in the Marine Expeditionary Units. This is the kind of thing that they do. They can invade using their Marine infantry to go across the beach. They have armor that they probably wouldn't use, but they might use helicopters to fast rope into an area. And they would also be able to use some of their other things, such as the Ospreys, for example, that it can be both helicopter-like, as in this phase, or airplane-like. So it's a very versatile platform. And then, of course, you have combat vehicles that they can actually send in. These are amphibious vehicles that can actually hit the beaches and disgorge Marines. So that becomes a critical thing, because when you look at Larak, it is a basic rock in the middle of the desert, and it does the kinds of things that you would be able to see in these areas. This area here would be the defended area that you spoke about. Yeah. That has all the radar installations. It's also very mountainous. This might be an area that they could consider for invasion, but there are roads and other things here. So there are several different targets that could potentially be beachheads, but it is a difficult place to invade at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously that is where some of those casualties come in.
Yes.
I mean, the potential casualties, the risk here, when you talk about the mountainous area so it's small, but there's a lot there.
Absolutely, there's a lot there. And of course, if they hold the high ground until it's bombed, that could give them a field of fire that could control approaches like at this beach right here, or even in the southern areas. So it's a very critical element here that has to be decided, and there has to be a lot of fusion of different forces, air power along with infantry, along with other elements of power.
So Iran has been threatening now new threats against U.S. troops who are not staying on U.S. bases, okay? And that might seem a bit confusing, but there's a reason for that. Some of it is, CNN's reported, some of those troops were moved off the bases before the war even began. But the New York Times is reporting that even more troops were moved off the bases because the bases have been hit. Yeah. And there has been meaningful damage. How much damage is Iran causing to the U.S. bases in the region?
So this is pretty significant. These are the bases as we know them right now, and these are the bases that were actually struck by the Iranians. So that includes everything from Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE, Al Udeid in Qatar, Prince Sultan Air Base, where we did have a casualty, a death near Riyadh, and I've been stationed there. And then, of course, at Port Shuaiba, where we had the mass casualty event with the Army National Guard soldiers. So this is a critical element right here. And of course, they also ended up attacking the area in Bahrain. So this is the Port Shuaiba strike. And what that really shows is that when you look at this area, this shows the vulnerability of each one of these. This is the Bahrain strike, where they knocked out a communications element here. And so these bases are particularly vulnerable because each of them have a unique mission set. And what they ended up doing was move a lot of personnel into office buildings, into other areas, even into hotels. And now what they're doing is they're actually telling people in Iran and in this region right here, they're actually telling them to target Americans in those hotels, in those office spaces. So it's become dangerous in that way as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Colonel Leighton. And next, breaking news, President Trump now ordering the DHS to immediately start paying TSA agents, a move to reduce those horribly long lines at airports. Plus, why did President Trump spend nearly 5 minutes today talking about Sharpies? Well, America's at war.
Take your health to the power of omega-3 with Nordic Naturals. Help every cell in your body function at its best with purely sourced support for your heart, mind, and body.
Sitcoms are making a comeback. Knew they would. We've got work to do.
Don't look at your phone to see what people think.
I looked. I know.
Take your health to the power of omega-3 with Nordic Naturals. Help every cell in your body function at its best with purely sourced support for your heart, mind, and body.
I was over 400 pounds and I felt like I was dying. We've done every crazy diet together.
Everything was so hard.
We came across LifeMD and the medication and said, let's just give it a go.
And it's the best decision we ever made. I've lost 50 pounds with LifeMD.
I've lost 182 pounds with LifeMD. Our marriage has been the best it's ever been. We're living the life that we're supposed to live.
Get Zepbound, Wegovy, and the new Wegovy pill at the lowest cost with or without insurance at joinlifemd.com.
Breaking news, the massive TSA lines across the country could be on the verge of finally getting shorter again. President Trump just announcing he's signing an order to, quote, immediately pay TSA agents. Now, it's unclear how the administration would get the money to make those payments, obviously, given the stalemate in Congress. But it comes as TSA wait times have been growing and, frankly, unacceptable at airports amid the funding fight in Congress. Houston's Bush International is currently 3.5 hours. So is that about to soon improve? Kristen Holmes is out front at the White House. So, Kristen, signing, saying he's going to pay them and then actually having the mechanism to do it when Congress hasn't passed anything. How does that work? What are you learning?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question here and one we're trying to get to the bottom of with the White House. And also, if he had this authority the entire time, why hadn't he done it sooner? I mean, these agents have gone more than a month without a full paycheck. As you noted, these lines are long. They're long in particular because we know hundreds of these TSA workers have just quit because they're not getting paid. And hundreds more, thousands more, have called out sick because they are not going to work for no pay. So we're trying to get to the bottom of this is how he's actually going to pay for this. Where is the funding coming from? Now, we've seen this administration before in the past go to the Office of Management and Budget and kind of try to work around different pots of money, move money from here to there. We don't know if that's what they're doing this time. We've just seen that happen in the past. But there's also another hurdle here. It's not just where the money is coming from, which of course is a big one. It's the legal authority that President Trump has to do this. I mean, let's look back at the last decade of government shutdowns. There's a reason that a president just didn't sign an executive order to end the government shutdown. It had to be worked through legally in Congress. So this idea that he can do this, there's just a lot of questions around it and what it would mean for these agents to actually get that paycheck. Again, there are thousands of agents who have gone more than a month without a full paycheck. When will they actually see that money? That's going to be a big question they want to know as they are determining whether or not they're going to go to work the next day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even things like if you have a direct deposit, right, the mechanism of getting the money from one place to another there, it's not an insignificant part of this conversation.
Right.
Kristen, thank you very much. And also tonight, President Trump held a nearly 2-hour cabinet meeting. And in this meeting, administration officials were offering work updates and then, of course, the usual flattery that we see at these cabinet meetings.
The president's not just doing a favor to the United States and to our people. This is for the world.
It is my distinct honor to be a member of your cabinet.
Thank you for doing the work of the free world.
Back on Venezuela, where Chris and I have both had a chance to be there, I literally think they're going to put up a statue to President Trump. And I'm not being, it's not a political statement, it's an actual thing.
So. That would be a great honor.
No, that flows to American refineries on the Gulf Coast, lowering the price of gas in America. So it's a...
Forget that. When are they going to do the statue?
Out front now, Patrick Murphy, former Undersecretary of the Army under President Obama and a former Democratic congressman and former Republican strategist, now podcast and television host, S.E. Cupp. All right, S.E., so the exchange there between Doug Burgum of the Interior and the President. So they're talking about the statue, and then Burgum's going on to talk about lowering energy prices.
But don't talk about that. Stop.
But he says, forget that. When are they going to do the statue?
Listen, the truth is, most voters are not watching these insane cabinet meetings.
No.
We have the pleasure of having to do that, and they are insane. And if you watch them, that's one of several moments that are just kind of nutso. If you watch them, you have to seriously question Trump's stability, okay? But what is trickling down in all of this to voters on the ground is the feeling that Trump is not paying attention to what matters to voters at home, to the issues that got him elected.
Right.
Him dismissing Doug Burgum about energy cost is like the perfect metaphor.
Right.
He'd rather talk about the statue, the ballroom, the monument, invading Greenland, all this nonsense, rather than the things that got Trump elected in the first place, the economy, crime. I mean, I think this is what voters are noticing, not the minutia, not these little moments.
Not the exchange between Doug Burgum, where, by the way, he's specifically talking about the price of gas, which has gone up $1 or more since the war began.
Yeah.
So Patrick, in this context, the flattery, right, and how important it is, okay, to Trump, the Golden Eagle that we're going to show you now is the America First Award. Okay, the America First Award is a new award. It's a Golden Eagle, and it is one created by House Speaker Mike Johnson. He created it, and he gave it to Trump at a congressional fundraiser last night, and he talked about it. Here is the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
But he is the suitable and fitting recipient of the first ever America First Award.